everybody. Welcome to this episode of A Journey with HR Professionals, brought to you by FWHR Chapter. My name is Bhavna, and I'm an HR professional too. I've been in HR for more than 7 years, have done different hats, been in talent acquisition, generalist, and HR BP. And I'm super excited to introduce with all of you today's guest. She is Genesis Randolph. She's my fellow HR professional, has been in payroll for most of her career. And I'm just super excited to know how her career and journey has been and, what all she can share with us today. So I'm just going to give the floor to Genesis. Welcome, Genesis. Thank you so much for taking out your time
Yes, thank
and
you.
be with us today. If you don't mind, can you just introduce yourself, and then we'll take on the questions from there.
All right. My name is Genesis Randolph. I've been in payroll for 5 years, 5 years and over 5.5 years.
Uh-huh.
Was introduced to it right out of grad school. It was a brand new experience for me, didn't have prior payroll experience at all.
Mm-hmm.
So it was something that really feel like I went back to school once again to learn the payroll
Yeah.
field.
Uh-huh.
I graduated with my master's in HR, human resource management from
Okay.
UT Arlington in
Yeah. Okay.
2012, May 2012.
Okay.
And also, a couple months later in December 2012, I also received my MBA. But my main focus was the HR degree, and I received that. I was able to obtain it. So,
Uh-huh. Awesome.
yes. So,
Oh,
sorry.
super. So, what got you into HR, Genesis? So I always knew that I want to work with people. That was
Mm-hmm.
my thing right from my college. And so HR was sort of a natural choice. But
Yes.
what were you passionate about? How did you get into HR?
So it's interesting. So when I was an undergrad at Purdue, I actually received, I was in the accounting program. So I received my bachelor's in accounting. And I actually had an organizational behavior course.
Okay.
And there was a book that we was reading called, I believe it's called People Matters or something like that. And
Okay.
the focus was on people being the asset to the company. And that stood
Absolutely.
out to me because I was like, wait a minute. We think about all these tangible things of
Yeah.
being assets to a company, but it
Ab-
really is the people. And
Absolutely.
so what always stood out to me was the relationship between management and the employee.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm also a McNair Scholar, which was McNair Scholar is pretty much someone that the goal is if you fall into certain categories, if you're a minority,
Mm-hmm.
um, first generation student,
Mm-hmm.
or if you were in low income family, the goal was that ultimately to expand beyond undergrad. So ultimately get your
Got it.
doctorate degree. So
Got it.
what we did was this program allowed you to go, uh, it was funded and it was able to provide students opportunity to see other graduate programs across the nation. And it was paid
Super.
for and you was able to experience that culture and whatnot. And
Absolutely. That
so
would have been great.
part of that
Uh-huh.
McNair program, I was selected to be in this internship where I actually did graduate level research. And so I had to come up with an issue.
Okay.
No, identify issue and address it. So my focus became my issue that I noticed was what impacted job motivation. And so I looked at two variables, pretty much someone's self-identity, the identity theory, pretty much
Uh-huh.
how they identify themselves, how do they perceive themselves, and the perceived organizational support or supervisory support. So if
Absolutely.
they believe that the supervisor or the organization is neglecting them, that can
Uh-huh.
impact someone's job motivation.
Yeah.
Or if you're having an identity issue, such as some type insecurity or your worth or your value, that can also impact the job motivation as well. So
Absolutely.
yes, so that from the internship that I did with McNair and being a McNair scholar, and also just my exposure in the organizational behavior
Mm-hmm.
course in that book about people matter, I believe, or about focusing on how people are the assets of the company,
Company.
it's stirring the pot for me, because I was like, okay, wait a minute. I
Oh,
knew that I
a
wanted to,
bulb went off, yeah?
yes, ma'am. I knew that I wanted to go beyond getting my bachelor's. And I said, okay, because I was looking for something to further my education, because I was going to do the accounting route, get my CPA, and call it a day. But then I said, okay, wait a minute. Let me look into getting my master's in HR. And then also I could possibly even get my doctorate, which I just stopped at the master's. But yes, I went the next level.
Well,
And so
one day, Genesis.
the reason why I stopped at the master's, because ultimately I spoke to individuals that were doctoral students or had a doctorates or PhDs and whatnot. They said ultimately the goal when you get your PhD is to teach.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't too sure if I was someone that was interested in teaching. And so that's why I was like, okay, because for me, I was going to get the doctoral degree was to be able to just support my HR profession experience. Yes. But then I thought about ultimately going to law school, because the legal side of HR too stood out to me, like employment law and stuff.
Absolutely.
So, and so that was a whole nother thing. But I was experienced HR law until I got into grad school, and that was a whole nother exposure there. So.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I feel that, it's just so vast that once you start to get into it, it's just, there's so much that you can learn and you can do.
Yes.
When it comes to HR law. I had a little bit of preview into HR law when I was doing my SPHR, and it's just so interesting, so for people who do it, they just go on a different level altogether.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. That was such a nice introduction, Genesis.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think we've sort of already covered a bit of the first question, which is how did you get into your professional start in HR? You've already shared, your interesting story and how you got excited about HR after reading, that organizational behavior, book. And so I guess a part of the question, which I'm very interested to know personally, is how did payroll happen to you, Genesis? I was, for everybody who's listening to this interview, I was telling Genesis before we officially started the interview that I've always been very interested in payroll, and I feel that it is such a strong pillar of HR as a function, and not enough is discussed and talked about it. And there's just so much pressure, at least I feel so, of being an HR professional working in payroll, team. So just give us a little more, insight about how you handle it and how you got into payroll.
Okay. So to be 100% honest and transparent, is that I got into payroll due to need. When I graduated from UT Arlington with my final master's, I was out of work for 7 months. And so I was constantly pursuing HR specific roles, such as HR specialist, HR journalist, HR coordinator, whatever, HR representatives, just to get me started, right?
We've all been there, yes.
Yes. And no door was open, or there was doors that were open, but as soon as I agreed to it, something happened and it fell through. So, okay, I know I need a job. I'm no longer in school. So I actually applied for something. I believe it was some type of site, and I think it was I forgot the name. It was something Rabbit or something like that. And so when I applied, I got into contact with a temp agency, a recruiting agency.
Got it.
And so they called me in, and I remember this day. I never forget it because it was in July 2015. And I went in, and the recruiter said, we have this awesome opportunity where it's a payroll position. They have stellar training. Even if it's okay if you don't come in with no payroll, if you don't have any payroll experience, they will train you up so you could be successful. Awesome. So at first, I'm gonna be honest, I resisted it because it didn't have the HR in the name. Yeah. And I was going to miss out on it. And so I said, well, I actually got my master's in HR. That's what I want to do. And she said, well, ma'am, I only handle the finance and the accounting piece of this recruiting agency. you will have to talk to the person who deals with specifically with HR.
Yeah.
I went to that person, and that person told me, well, the only position that we have available is this HR assistant position that was less than, I think, $12 an hour for Kroger. And I said,
not happening.
I'm in a different point in my life right now. If I was still in school, $12, less than $12 an hour, I could do, know. But it's I have different type of responsibility right now. So I went back to the initial recruiter and I said, okay, well, like I don't have any other options. So if you're willing, so go ahead. I'm okay with you providing it with my information and see if they will take a chance with me.
Absolutely.
And so it was a Wednesday. I never forget it. And I made up my mind. I said, okay, if this is something I'm supposed to do, this is what I'm purposed to do for this moment, I'll go forward with it. So later that afternoon, either later that afternoon or the next day, that recruiter reached out to me and said, they actually want to meet with you the next couple of days. So this was all Wednesday. So I think this was Wednesday evening when she told me that. And so I said, okay, well, since they want to take a chance on me, I'll go ahead and go to the interview.
Absolutely.
So Friday came and we met, and I met with I believe 4 people that day. I met with the payroll manager. I met with 2 payroll managers, 1 payroll supervisor.
And this is the company you're currently with, right?
Yes, AutoNation. Awesome. Sorry, yes. So this was the company that I interviewed with that I was resistant to at first because it did not have HR in the title, was AutoNation. So I went to AutoNation, and which is located in Irving. This is the Shared Service Center. Went to Irving and went the interview, and I met with 4 people. There was 1 person I was supposed to interview with, but they were not in that day. So I met with the payroll supervisor at the time, 2 payroll managers at the same time, and then I met with ultimately the payroll director. It ended there. So I met with him. Each interview went well, and awesome. So he said to me, when do you like to start? I said, I'll start Monday.
Awesome.
Right. So after 7 months being unemployed, I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and start Monday. I needed it. So so I went, and it's all she wrote. So my first day, I started at AutoNation July 13th, 2015. And I remember that day specifically because that was when, after being unemployed for 7 months, and also to just, my uncle's birthday and whatnot like that. But for the most part, that was a day that my life changed forever, where I started on the path of learning the payroll, digging and becoming indulged with the payroll experience.
Payroll spirit.
Yes.
Awesome. I think Genesis, I just have found such a huge inspiration in your answer. And I feel for so many people, because of whatever is going on right now, who've not been working, who've been unfortunately laid off from their work, it is so important to keep our options open, because you never know where you find your calling. And there's this very famous quote that I often tell people, that you often find your destiny on the paths you choose to avoid, so it's just so inspirational, Genesis. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And when people think of HR, they always think these generalist roles and talent acquisitions role, but there's just so much to do in HR. So thank you so much for that answer.
No problem.
And so I'll just jump on to the next question. And what is the most challenging thing about payroll, Genesis? When you started and they started training you, did you had second doubts, even while during the journey, that is this something that I really want to do? How has been your journey so far, and what's the most challenging bit?
Oh, yes, ma'am. The challenges were faced head on immediately. So when I took on this position, I started off as a temp to perm. So I was on contract for 3 months, and then I became perm in November 2015. It was so challenging. I feel like I went back to school all over again. What made it challenging was, it was beyond just the numbers. It was seeing how someone's paycheck, the final result, their earnings statement was created, what was developed. So pretty much it's all these moving parts, from benefits, deductions, tax deductions from there. If there's garnishments that this person is has being
Yeah.
deducted from their earnings.
Mm-hmm.
Different type of pay structures such as hourly, salary, technicians with these authorized hours and earnings. It was just so many, like any pay structure you could think of, a pay type, I had exposure to that. And so learning that, and then not just that, I'm learning multiple states. So I'm learning that
I'm
Texas
sure.
has a different
In
type of,
different states,
yes,
has different implication. Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah.
different type of how they process. And if there's a termination with California, if it's involuntary, it has to happen immediately, have 72 hours, or as a person's walking out, or with Texas, they may have it to the next pay 7 days after the day that they term, or so forth. Like it's all of these different factors that played
Mm-hmm.
into the state itself. There's no size fits all, because even then, when I was processing payroll, for instance, um, for, I would say, like Nevada or Arizona, the different locations within the same state
Uh-huh.
experience different things as well.
Oh,
And so
wow.
it,
That's
it
complicated. This sounds
yes, yes.
complicated.
And unfortunately, at times, so you could have one position. So let's say a service advisor. This is the individual when you go into this to the car dealership that you go to, in this particular case, All Nations car dealership, and
Uh-huh.
you meet with so you have you need your car to be serviced. So this is the person, the expert you speak to about getting certain parts, certain type of services done to your
Sure.
vehicle. But in different areas, a service advisor is paid differently. They might start off with a training
Ah,
plan,
got it.
a
Mm-hmm.
training service plan for 90
Mm-hmm.
days.
Mm-hmm.
Another one's just go straight into it,
Mm-hmm.
and they have an hourly component. They have a draw, and that's another thing. The draw is advance payment and whatnot. So it was, I realized, because I being exposed to was considered, because in what I was exposed to, where there was two regions. So it was
Okay.
Western region, which would include California, Washington, Nevada, Arizona, Texas now,
Mm-hmm.
Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eastern region was Florida, Georgia,
Yeah,
Illinois,
got it. Got it.
Tennessee, and so forth. So, and I noticed that there was differences among how they address things. So it it really kept me on my toes, and it required so much attention to detail.
Absolutely.
Detail. I'm talking about, looking at, making sure that, so when I process, for instance, the payroll, transmission day, and we use the software from ADP, and so
Okay.
something is wrong with associates information, it will create an error report. And
Okay.
on there, it will identify um, the associate's address could be incorrect, or the
Uh-huh.
tax information is incorrect. So then that
Uh-huh.
has to be addressed
Absolutely.
in the different areas of the payroll.
Absolutely.
And so the department that I came from, it's so large. We had 26,000 plus associates across the nation, over 300
I can
plus
imagine. I can
locations.
imagine.
So each payroll person, we have to handle a large load. So I had 21 locations, handling at least 1,200 associates at a time. And I had to make sure that everything was processed accurately and timely in a bi-weekly, semi-monthly payroll. So it was
Absolutely.
almost like every 2 weeks or so, and
Wow.
2.5 weeks later or so forth. So
Yes.
depending on how the dates fall.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that you've really risen from where you started to where
Yes.
you are now. So would you say you found your calling, Genesis? Is this something that you want to be in now?
Uh, it's interesting about that, because I could say this is that I learned a great deal. I'm so grateful that I went
Got
ahead
that
and received that
opportunity at that
opportunity.
point in time. Yeah.
That I was able, within the 5 years, I have grown so much. The way
Yes.
that I came into it, to the payroll, to now, is I can see a change with me. I'm so much more confident
Yeah.
than what I was when I first started
I'm
doing
sure.
payroll.
Yeah.
Because I'm being honest with you, when I first started, when I was doing that training phase, I remember telling my mother, I said, Mom, I don't think I could continue with this because I'm just at the bottom of the barrel. Like I just barely getting by. But I noticed that, and it's something that I remember what the payroll director said on the day that he interviewed me. He said, give this a year. He said, it's a learning curve. He said, give yourself a year to understand everything. And even then, you will not have full understanding. I'm always learning.
Spoke like a true manager,
Yes.
Genesis, spoke
Yes.
like a true manager.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm always learning. And that's the thing. So that's why I can say with this payroll experience, there's nothing I would change.
Yeah.
And I have learned to do not get caught up with the title. The title
Not
is
at all.
something that I realized, somebody said this before, I heard this quote that someone said that the title is rented and it could always change.
Absolutely. It's just a nomenclature and just nothing more than that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so what it is, as you walk out this, as I walked out in this journey and so forth, in of self-development and just growth of knowledge and understanding and insight, I just see like there's a level of confidence and comfort that I have now that I didn't initially have. And now I know, because that's something that also was said on the day that I was interviewed. If you could do payroll here, you could do payroll anywhere.
Anywhere. Got it. Thank you so much, Genesis. And, just so insightful, to talk about these challenges and these, small things that you don't really pay attention to at the time that they're being said. And then they just come to you as such great inspirational thoughts. Thank you. And I'm going to move on to my next question now. And, ask you, how do you stay on top of what's happening, latest trends on what's changing in payroll industry? So how do you do that?
Well, okay, so there's two things. So I noticed that because the area of payroll that I am working in the shared service center, that a lot of our information comes from the corporate level, which is out in Florida. So if there's been changes to the PTO policies, because a lot of times the PTO policies change every year. There's, with this most recent time with the COVID-19, with the furloughs, there was a new pay code created. So what that means was this pay code was created for those who may have been impacted by COVID in some form or fashion.
Wow.
To enable them to still get paid. And so what that was is, so it shifted how we process our payroll throughout this season, where we had to expedite additional payrolls and so forth, just to ensure people was paid on a timely manner.
Absolutely.
Especially even with those furloughs, because it was the temporary LOAs and whatnot, that there was special pay paid to them to ensure that they were made whole in this trying time.
Yes.
And so with that, taking that the information that I'm constantly receiving from upper management and so forth, I also have to have my ear to the world, especially our nation, regarding the news.
Yes.
Because I know, like, when that whole situation had started with this virus, with the whole the special loans that were being paid out, that impacted our company, right? And so that means is, the company might have been able to get that money in some form of fashion, but in my situation, my company, they received a loan, but they returned it. So they impacted how if people was going to return from furlough or not.
Yeah.
So with that, I always had to stay up on my toes of the trying times. And I think this season in itself was the most trying time for many. And honestly, I believe that if you can make it through this, you can make it through anything. And so,
I'll take your word for it, Genesis. Yes. We're all just trying to get through this. Yes.
And it's easier said and done. Said and done.
Yeah.
But the thing is this: I realize with life, it comes with many obstacles and challenges, and I just realized you just have to rise to them to the best of your abilities, of course. Absolutely. But then you realize sometimes you don't realize sometimes what you're capable of until you're tested, until you face some type of opposition.
Yes.
And so with that, in this is that, as I'm seeing the world changing, I'm seeing how payroll's changing. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing how, someone's employees' health may have been impacted by the virus, and how that resulted into, unfortunately, death. And how to
Yeah.
handle that
Yeah.
payout and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
to stay on top of the trends and the changes, it is pretty much just always being aware of my environment and seeing how these nation decisions does impact how people are paid. If people
Absolutely.
are working, if
Absolutely.
people come into, in this case, the dealerships that I
Mm-hmm.
worked at, at the
Mm-hmm.
company I worked at. It, so that's what it was. Just being
Okay.
privy to,
Got it.
just,
Got it.
provided from above and
Uh-huh.
around me.
But is there any particular resource, Genesis? If there anybody listening to this interview who may just be starting in payroll or who aspire to have a career in payroll, is there a forum or is there a journal that you recommend that they go through or have an access to?
Yes. So what comes to mind is, because more likely someone who's doing payroll, they gonna more likely gonna be exposed to multi-state
Okay.
processing. So
Okay.
with that, look at the websites out there that's pertaining to that state in regarding
Ah, got it.
their laws,
Mm-hmm.
how they handle
Mm-hmm.
terminations, what's the
Mm-hmm.
expectation for PTO,
Mm-hmm.
the minimum wage, all of that,
Yes.
because minimum wage
Absolutely.
changes every year for the
Yes.
most part.
Uh-huh.
And so go to those specific state organized sites, and it's like, whatever that state is, .org, I'm sure, or
Mm-hmm.
edu.
Mm-hmm.
Go to those sites and you will find a breadth of information
Awesome.
that's going to be applicable to what
Awesome.
you're doing day in and day out. And what actually will give you, because the thing is this, at the end of the day, when it's law, that the state law or federal law, it supersedes anything,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. Whatever
exactly.
you've decided for your state, Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, read up, people. And if you have any questions, you know who to reach out to. Okay, that brings us to our next question, which is a part that I already sort of asked you, Genesis. What advice would you give to students or recent grads around or trying to find work, for their first professional job?
Yes. So just how I learned from my situation, do not sabotage yourself. What I mean is that when you have been provided an opportunity, it may not look like ideally what you want,
Yeah,
but
so
a
true.
lot of times it could be something that supersedes or
Blessing in
exceed
disguise.
your
Mm-hmm.
vision, your
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
viewpoint of yourself, your
Mm-hmm.
ideas. And you realize with time, whatever your purpose to be in, whatever you're supposed to be at, you will experience it. And then your journey does not look like someone else's journey. Your path does not look like no one else's path. I know one thing that kind of frustrated me when I first started grad school is when I had someone, advisor, say, this happened to me. I got a job right in this class. I was getting my MBA. Before you know it, I moved up in this company and this and this and that. So I was very hopeful. I was like, okay, that's gonna be me.
Yeah.
Man, it it was not. And now there's individuals who do come
Yep.
out of school and they go straight before they even graduate, they already in their field. There's stories like that.
Yeah.
But for me, I realized my story was different. And at times I may even feel like a late bloomer. But the thing is this was the path that was destined for me. And there's
Yes.
nothing that I would do differently. So be
Yes.
encouraged, be patient, be diligent, be willing to talk to people that's in the field that you may desire.
Mm-hmm.
Networking is good. I know that with my particular case, I didn't get into payroll from networking, but the fact is this is always great to talk to people who is awesomely in what you desire,
Absolutely.
because the thing is you could continue having those conversations and continue
Yes.
having that fire in you. So in this case of HR, constantly burning in you in a sense,
Yes.
because whatever you are, I'll be honest, when I'm in this payroll position, I could think of all these different type of HR opportunities, right?
Yes.
Things that could help develop the relationship, lessen the gap between the employee and the manager, or all these different things. Like my mind is always going. So I would definitely say be patient, be diligent, be open to trying something different. Because I tried
So,
something different and my life has
so
changed
true.
forever. So,
So true,
so,
Genesis. So
so
true.
definitely be open to that and be encouraged and to know and to be willing to reach out to people, to ask questions, to be connected with people on LinkedIn, or, be joining these or participating in these HR organizations that's
Professional
been
groups,
developed,
absolutely.
you know, these
You
HR
know, yeah.
professionals, because they could give you some time.
FWHR
Yes, ma'am.
is just
Huh?
one of them. Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
ma'am. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. And so, and realize, just like Bama mentioned earlier, is that there's no HR. Excuse me. HR is a brand. Is a broad.
It's so
You
broad.
cannot. It's not just okay. It's these few particular areas of HR.
Yes.
It's so broad, and each
Yes.
HR department, HR area at a company looks different. Different. So
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
yes. And so with that, just know that you have something unique to you that cannot be duplicated. It cannot be imitated. Just know that you walk in your
It's
true
your
self.
individual journey, Genesis.
Yes, your individual
Absolutely.
journey. It would create something beautiful, and then your story could be shared for someone else. And so I realized this. This is something I come to understand is that a lot of times what we go through is not for ourselves; it's for someone else. And so with that, when you know that um, there's a whole lot of there's so much you want to receive all that you can in that first. So in this case, in your first professional
Mm-hmm.
job, you'll
Mm-hmm.
have it. You will
Yeah.
experience it. It may be trying, it may be difficult,
Yeah.
but make sure that you focus on why you're there and getting the most out of that opportunity. Stay positive. Do
Mm-hmm.
not partake in any uh toxicity.
Yeah.
Stay away
Yeah.
from the drama. You don't
Yep.
need it.
Yep. 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 So true.
Yes, and stay within that while you there and learn all you can learn.
Yeah.
Do not
Upskill people. Upskill.
upscale. Yes, ask all the questions that you can
Yes.
and take
Absolutely.
notes. And
Yep.
so for the students and recent grads, stay encouraged. Continue fighting a good fight. It will work out on your
It
behalf.
will. It
Um,
will.
and your story is uniquely yours, but your purpose and it is for a reason. Exactly why you
Awesome.
do this. So
You are such an inspiration,
thank
Genesis.
you.
Thank you so much, for your answer. And thank you so much for taking out time to
Yes,
speak with
ma'am.
us. And I truly, truly appreciate, your time and your answers and your kind words and your inspirational words. And thank you once again. And
Yes.
I hope we reach out to you sometime in future
Yes,
again.
ma'am.
And we have more questions for you by then.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. Have a
All right.
nice evening.
All right. You
Bye.
too.